In the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Please be seated. I am the Alpha and the Omega. In today's reading from Revelation, we hear God speaking. I am the Alpha and the Omega, says the Lord, who is, and who was, and who is to come. God is the beginning and the end of all things. God is present in all the in-betweens, beginnings and endings. We all stand every day at thresholds between endings and beginnings. Today is the last Sunday in the church's calendar year. It is known as Christ the King Sunday. It is the culmination of a year of stories about God, Jesus, the church, and who we are as a community of faith. Next week, Advent begins the new church year, and we hear all the stories again. John the Baptist reappears. We look forward to the Feast of the Incarnation, Christmas, Jesus' birth, and beyond. And we have been here countless number of times. More often than not, I suspect we are barely aware of the change. Things going on around us in our personal lives, in the world, take precedence. I often think the extraordinary gets lost in the ordinary. The trials, the tribulations, concerns, and even the moments of personal and secular celebrations. Days like today and next week serve as reminders that there's more going on than we think. God is breaking in on all of our endings and beginnings, and God invites us over the threshold, calling us to pay attention, calling us to be awake, alive to whatever comes our way. In today's gospel reading, we are only hours away from Jesus' death on the cross. In our reading from John, we are invited to a curious exchange between Pilate and Jesus with a very public outcome. Jesus has spent the night before, after his arrest, on trial before the chief priests and the elders. And after their exhaustive questioning and deliberations, by the way, they always knew what they wanted the outcome to be, they send Jesus bound to Pilate's headquarters. And John gives us a sense that this was a private room, just outside a more public open space, possibly a raised balcony overlooking a courtyard. That's what they show in the movies, where there are crowds gathered. They're all waiting for the drama to continue to unfold. What was it like, though, in that room? Now, I imagine there were guards at the entrances standing by, waiting. And swirling around in the air are things said and left unsaid. You can hear a background noise of whispering. Things like, we have to stop him. He is a danger to us. We have to bring him before Pilate on charges which will force Pilate to kill him as a threat to the emperor. That will work. Words like blasphemy will not work for Pilate. Have you ever heard him say that he was king? No. But clearly people who follow him call him Messiah. They have ideas of him as a king. Didn't they wave branches and cry Hosanna when he came into the city? Some say they want him to be another David. Whispers. Whispers. It feels like this is that private moment between Pilate and Jesus, and the others in the room fade away into the background. I wonder, did Pilate stand off a bit to ask his question? Or did he move in closer, better to see Jesus' reaction? Pilate asks, "Are you King of the Jews?" Was Pilate merely curious? Or was this a legal sort of question because he had heard some of the whispers for himself? Was he genuinely interested? Did he really care about whatever Jesus might give him and tell him? When you read all the gospel accounts together of this meeting, you get a sense that Pilate is struggling with what he was asked to do by the Jewish authorities. He had a job as the governor to prosecute and execute those who were clearly enemies of the empire. He also understood that there was more happening. He suspected that those who brought Jesus to him had their own agenda. Jesus was more of a threat to them and their authority, perhaps, than he was to Rome. Pilate is caught in a political and personal dilemma. But today we only hear a small portion of the story. And in that small portion, we have a very pointed conversation between these two men. Pilate asks 4 questions here. Are you king of the Jews? I'm not a Jew, am I? What have you done? So you are a king? If we could be with Jesus at that moment, what would we ask? Did Jesus look directly at Pilate when he answered, engaging fully for that moment with Pilate's questions? Here is where I believe John, the gospel writer, steps into the story. He needed to get Jesus in this exchange to the point where Jesus' response to Pilate will give voice to John's agenda. An agenda and a purpose which was carefully constructed from the beginning of his gospel. John was leading the reader, leading us to a place where we can begin to see the cross in a different light. Rather than a cross with Jesus' crucified body, we have a resurrected Jesus crowned. Jesus' death on the cross is a cross of glory. Death is conquered. The kingdom Jesus speaks about, the kingdom which is both here and not yet, is about to be revealed. Jesus, in his final exchange with Pilate, says clearly, my kingdom is not from here. And Pilate only knows about earthly kings and earthly kingdoms, which would be a threat to the empire. So Pilate asks us one more question to push things further. So you are a king? Jesus knows that Pilate is stuck. Pilate has no vision beyond the specific circumstances of his life and his role as a governor. We can be stuck in our lives as well, and our circumstances, unable to see beyond anything else. Here Jesus meets Pilate where he is. You say that I am king. At this point, John's theology takes over with Jesus' response. Jesus says, for this I was born. And then John takes us back to the beginning of his gospel.
It stopped. Oh, I don't know what to do. Oh my. Something went wrong. Oh dear. Frozen.
Dramatic event. What does it have to say to us today on this last day of the church year? What does it have to say to us as we continue to move forward in our search process? How does it prepare for us for what is to come next? What does it have to say to us about our own lives, right here, right now, today? And how do we get from our head to our heart? There is rarely a time in our own lives for reflection as we step over one threshold after another, as we move through one ending after another. And many of our beginnings just roll on past that first step and the next, until we are walking or running into what comes next. No time for reflection. Some endings can be painful, unwanted, and unexpected. Jesus' death on the cross from the viewpoint of his friends was certainly unwanted and painful. Yet, new life happened. Endings can also mark the everyday parts of our lives. We get up in the morning, we face the day, each day becomes a new beginning, if you think about it. We move through the day, and then the day ends. Spring comes, and it feels like a new beginning. Fall comes, followed closely by winter, and its sense of ending as we wait for spring to come again. We can all, each of us here, name for ourselves those times that we have noticed as endings or beginnings. And all that happens in between the endings and the beginning is where we live our lives. It is where Jesus' truth lives in our lives. It is where God's light shines into our darkness. It is where God's love is known. It is where God's forgiveness happens. It is where mercy lives. It is where love, hope lives. It is where joy can surprise us even in the midst of the hardest endings. Last Friday, while on a road trip vacation with family and friends, 5 different beds in which to sleep in 7 days of travel, my husband and David and I were on our way to Baltimore to our daughter's home in New Jersey. We were definitely a bit road weary and hungry, so we stopped for lunch at a pizza place at a shopping center. After standing in line, we found a place to eat in the back by a window, away from the people in the place. And there was a cold breeze over our head, really cold, and you know I get cold. So we moved to the next table, asking the woman as if it was okay for us to share the space. She said yes. And while sitting there waiting to get our food, a young man, a bit scruffy, with a ball cap on, stopped and asked if we minded if he could sit at the table that we had abandoned by the window. I said yes, go ahead. At one point, I glanced over at the young man and found him with his head bowed over his food, obviously praying. I realized I had judged him and seen him as a particular stereotype. And I was caught up short. Anxious to get back on the road, we ate our food quickly. And as I was standing up to get ready to leave, something made me stop. I turned back to the young man, touched his table, and looked at him and said, "Have a good day." He looked up at me startled, then he smiled, a smile that beamed across his face. I saw his eyes sparkling green, blue, kind eyes. And I felt, in that moment, our souls meet. I felt my soul open. I felt as though I was looking into the eyes and the face of Jesus. We never know when we will meet God in the other and be surprised by joy. Amen.